My name is Mike Newman from My1Login, and today delighted to be joined on stage today with Derek, who's the Cybersecurity Director from PwC. And today what we'd like to do is go through a bit of an overview about phishing and why prevention is better than cure, and that there is a different way to look at phishing. So that's kind of what we want to cover off. We'll run through a bit of a background about the typical phishing attacks, the success rates, the impact of phishing, a quick review of the usual approaches to tackling phishing. So what do organizations typically do to address phishing, and then how My1Login and PwC can help, because there's a bit more. Hopefully, there's a bit more to this than the usual training and mail filtering, as you'll hopefully find out, and then some takeaway actions. So, in terms of phishing rates and phishing success, so if you look at who's heard of the Verizon data breach report? Yeah, some. Okay, so it's a very good, useful resource. It's worth looking up. It's free. It's always good in my book. It's the Verizon Corporate Data Breach Report. It has a huge amount of intelligence and statistics and analysis of data breaches that have occurred, and it's published annually. And the latest report says that basically phishing was involved in around 90% of cyber attacks, successful attacks in the last year. And typically, around 4% of users will actually respond to a phishing email. So, that's quite a high hit rate for any kind of campaign. It's much more successful than our marketing campaigns. But the more phishing emails that someone has clicked, there's also a statistic there that says that they're actually more likely to do that again. And the reality is that even once a phishing attack has been detected, in the enterprise, typically that first report won't come in until about 28 minutes later from someone who actually gets the fact that the organization is under attack. So by that time, people have clicked on it. People have been lulled into disclosing login credentials on a spoofed URL or fake login page. So these are the sort of statistics around the success of phishing attacks. So it's a real threat, and I'm now going to hand over a little bit to Derek, who's going to explain a little bit more about the business impact of phishing. So, Derek.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. So just quickly in terms of introduction, so I head up our identity and access management practice in the United Kingdom, and in PwC we have about 250 cyber professionals. So as Mike says, phishing is real and businesses suffer the consequences of that. We see that front line as we help clients responding to attacks. Does everyone here like chocolate? Yeah. So I've got 2 chocolate coins here, and in exchange, if I give you the chocolate coins, you'll give me your password, yeah? Well, interestingly, a survey carried out by the University of Luxembourg found that 46% of people would give their password. And the reason they did that is because those researchers built a connection. There was trust, and people felt they should, because of that trust, give something in return. They didn't think they would exploit it, they didn't think they would do anything nasty with it, and they did give the passwords. This is real. You can go and look at the research, it's fascinating. Less people gave the password when the chocolate came afterwards. What does that tell you? So if we get something, we often feel we'll give something back. That's exactly what phishing is about. People, the bad people, are after your password, your details, your credentials, your secret information. And they're not going to do anything very, constructive with that that's going to help you. It's become, as Mike says, one of the primary means of attempting to acquire information. And the interesting thing about phishing is it's then what it leads on to. And we see this more and more. where malware is then installed as a result of a phishing attack. You know, we also do, so Verizon that Mike quoted, we also do information security stats, and that tells us that 37% of security breaches are caused by phishing incidents based on employees and partners. That's astounding. So in terms of phishing, there's two main types that we talk about. We talk about mass phishing, which is very much to everyone. You know, we've all had these emails. I'm sure there's a few laughs in the crowd. I'm sure you recognise it in terms of when you get the email that says click on this link. But when it becomes personal, that's spear phishing. You are being targeted. They know about you. They might know where you live. They might know how many kids you have. They might know what kind of car you drive. And that's, again, going back to the whole chocolate thing, they are building up a connection. They are building up trust. They are much more sophisticated. Now, look, within PwC, there's a lot more clever people than myself. And we do a lot of research, not just around, you know, humans and technology, but also around how we work, the biases that we have. And we have done massive amounts of research into what's effective from a phishing perspective. And it's really incredible the success that people have. So let me give you an example of that. So 1 year ago, pretty much to the day, I presented at a conference. And after the conference, somebody sent me an email and said, it was fantastic, I hope you all do that today as well. It's fantastic, can you please send me the details of the presentation? And I did that. And he said, do you mind if we keep in touch, because it's really interesting, I'm fascinated about security. And over the 6 months that followed, every month or two I'd get an email. 6 months after that, I got an email that says, I hope you don't mind, I'm really interested, I've developed a white paper, can you give me your thoughts? And it included a link. And before I clicked the link, I thought, hang on a second, where is this going to take me to? And what site and content does it contain? And I sent it to one of our internal IT security guys. And he said, Derek, don't click on the link. That's spear phishing. And people are doing it. People are doing it to security professionals. People are doing it to security professionals. People are doing it to our users in the business, and it is impactful and it is dangerous. So what are the 4 common types of attack we see? Obviously, deception. You know, we've all had those emails. Content injection, where they insert malicious content in websites, and we've seen that recently with a certain attack in an airline. Website redirection, so that's what happened to me. They were trying to redirect me to a site that looked genuine, that wasn't. And malware, very dangerous, very powerful, and we see more and more of that around the sophisticated attacks today. What's really key is, how do your staff respond? Because they are your last line of defense. And how well educated are they? That's really important, and we'll come back to that in a second. Now, hopefully, you all like a little bit of humor. And so within PwC, we've recategorized some of the phishing attempts that we see today. These aren't real, by the way, in terms of the names. You know, octa-phishing, where people target 8 folks at any one time. Crab phishing, where it's kind of pincer movement. 2 people who are attacking the same target. The Loch Ness Monster phishing. So Mike and I, both Scottish. Have you seen the Loch Ness Monster, Mike? So you're not quite sure even if your target exists, but you've seen a kind of grainy photo of them. Kraken phishing, that's wild. Dead Sea phishing, and then catfishing. Now, interestingly, when I sent this to our experts that see phishing attacks day in, day out, they sent me back an email to say, Derek, these are not real phishing attacks. I think the humour was lost on them. But the point of this is it's actually not a joke, right? It is real. businesses face massive challenge and disruption when a phishing attack does happen, that obviously then leads on to things like malware being deployed. What I would say to this is we presented, PwC, Matt Wixey presented at Black Hat, and some of the findings of that are astonishing, and I would encourage you, as one of the takeaways, and we'll come back to it, is to look up his research, look up all the research we've done into this, because this isn't going away, and the sophistication of attacks is only increasing. So how is phishing currently tackled? And look, there isn't a single silver bullet that will address all the issues that sit around phishing. You know, we very much see customers say, we've got that covered, we've got software on our network that will detect that, and essentially prevent users from clicking on those links and reaching the destination. You know, I often use the phrase that culture eats strategy. And what I mean by that is you need to not only educate and have a strategy that's effective, but you need to make sure that the culture in your organization is one of security. People need to be security conscious. And that's why education and security awareness really matters.
Thanks, Derek. Okay, so what we want to talk about now is these are the typical traditional approaches to phishing. So it's all about, you know, risk reduction. You're not eliminating the risk. You're trying to hopefully, you know, educate and get people into a point where they're aware of phishing risks and that they take their responsibilities seriously, as you know, because they love information security, you know, as all employees do. But there's more you can do, and one of the things that you can do is with My1Login, you can actually My1Login provide an identity and access management solution. So we have a totally modular set of IAM products that include single sign-on for web, single sign-on for thick client desktop apps, so kind of legacy desktop executables, privileged password management, and a few other product modules. The key benefits of our solution are that you can do things like detect shadow IT. So you can actually you can use our solution to auto-discover which web applications that users are actually logging into, because quite often, you know, there's the whole thing about the known knowns and the known unknowns, and then the unknown unknowns, if you want to do the Donald Rumsfeld thing from 10 years ago, whenever it was. But the world of unknown unknowns is out there, and shadow IT is prolific, and that increases identity sprawl in your organization. So identities are being used in more and more cloud apps. Departments are autonomously choosing to adopt applications and use them out with the knowledge of IT. So all of that compounds this whole phishing risk, because these apps are out there, people are logging in with passwords. So with My1Login, you can actually detect the shadow IT that's out there. But then you can do something a bit more intelligent with it. You can actually use My1Login's IAM solution to set a central policy and force changes to the user's passwords on the target applications. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So that means you're moving away from a world where users are choosing their own relatively weak passwords to a position where the system has generated extremely strong and complex passwords and set them on the target applications, so on the third-party apps. And it also delivers single sign-on into all application types, so you know, whether it's thick clients or web applications. But going back to the web applications, if you choose a single sign-on solution that can go out and automatically discover the web apps being used, it will notify you of these applications, and you can make a simple policy decision. You can essentially flick a switch and say, yes, that URL is a valid business domain, so I want to include that with the IAM system. And when you switch it to say include, it means that the next time users try and authenticate with that app, My1Login will sign them straight in using the credentials that they have for that application. So that means that all of the employees' logins and authentication is seamlessly linked to their directory login. So all they have to do is log into the directory, and then My1Login seamlessly authenticates them behind the scenes with all other apps. So there's no need to, there's no need to ask them to use a portal or do something different. They just start getting authenticated with the apps using the identities, relevant identities for that. So when it comes to setting the policy, you can actually, the big question is, well, how do you do this thing called eliminating phishing, right? Yes, we can eliminate phishing. How bold a claim is that? So, never say, don't be silly. There's no way you can eliminate phishing. Well, by setting these passwords for the password policies for the third-party apps in My1Login, you could say, let's take an application like let's say like Salesforce, for instance. So if you've got users, if you're not using SAML and you have users logging in with usernames and passwords into Salesforce, you could set a policy in the My1Login system to say the next time users log into Salesforce, force a change to their password and make it 40 characters long, totally random, high entropy, and then hide it from the user, okay? Because the user doesn't need to know it anymore. It's all linked to their AD profile, so as soon as the users go to Salesforce next time, they will just get authenticated with the credentials for that application. They don't know the credentials for that application. You're taking password management problem away from something that's in the hands of the users, where users will store them in spreadsheets or in their mobile phones or upload them to put them in the cloud and securely. You're moving that out of their hands and putting the business back in control of passwords. But what it means is that if you've taken these passwords out of the user's control and you've used our system to generate these strong passwords and set them on the target applications, and the users don't know the passwords, then if they don't know the passwords, how can they be phished? Okay? So this is a totally different way of looking at phishing, and particularly with leveraging your IAM solution with this sort of functionality to make sure that you can actually eradicate the phishing on certain applications. So the additional benefits of our solution would be that you can provide single sign-on into all application types. And that can either be via a portal, like you've probably seen, and many of the vendors in this space operate with a portal for single sign-on. But actually, one of the unique things about us is that you don't need to use a portal. So this can also operate seamlessly in the background, where it's essentially transparent for the employees. So you don't have any, as soon as you put something new in front of users, you have a training problem, you have to overcome, you're creating barriers to rollout, you're creating barriers to adoption, you're kind of asking them to, would you mind engaging with this new system, and because it will actually help you. Right, users don't want to change behaviors, right? So with us, you can actually roll this out seamlessly in the background, so that it just runs in the background. It knows who the user is that's authenticated on the Active Directory, and will automatically log them into any third-party application, Thick client or web app, as soon as they launch that app. So they don't have to go through a portal. So that makes the whole process of rolling out much more straightforward. And then there's the additional business benefits, and you get, yes, you can eliminate phishing, but you get a whole pile of other security benefits alongside that. As I said, you put the business back in control of passwords, and instead of leaving password management in the hands of the users. You get productivity benefits because people aren't having to fiddle about and remember which username is it and which password combination. Is it my personnel number? Is it my AD username? Is it my email address? That's just the username, let alone, that's before they've even started thinking about what password to type in. So you're taking all of that pain away and increasing productivity, and you're addressing the whole compliance piece. So with the compliance piece, you've got the backdrop of GDPR. There's got to be audit trails. Who's got access to what systems and data? Have you got effective controls around that? All of that you get in one place with an IAM solution. So that's it in summary. That's what we do. We work across a variety of sectors. We've won a number of awards for our approach to this in the security industry, So that's a bit about how My1Login can help, and I'd now like to hand you back to Derek for a bit of an overview as to how PwC can help. And so we've got a question slot at the end. Are you okay? Is that okay? Great, thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
So I'll be super quick to wrap up. In terms of where PwC help, it's the full spectrum. So we recognize the value of tools and technology, and that can really help us, as Mike says, to empower the business, to reduce the risk. But ultimately, there's a number of factors here. So we look at the security policies, we look at the culture, the education. We have something called Game of Thrones, because sometimes executives need to understand this in simple terms. And so we play this game where it's essentially a phishing attack, and we see how they respond to that, and we educate them. And from that, obviously, there's playbooks around what they would do if that were to be a real attack. So we spend a lot of time educating, advising, defining strategy, testing, ultimately improving. And then if the worst does happen, we can help clients in that scenario as well. But we hope it doesn't get to that. All of this is to help you so that you don't have an incident where you have to call us in. And this is just a summary of the 4 things that we do. We actually do simulations of phishing attacks. And it's quite interesting, we generally get about 5% click-through. So Mike said at the start, obviously 4%. So it is 4 to 5% of your user population will click. That's what we find. And this is just a quick summary of our credentials as PwC. The one thing I'd say as we kind of wrap up with key takeaways are the current approach to tackle phishing is not working, because ultimately it's getting more sophisticated, there's more attacks, and it really still is impacting organizations today. Be realistic, be creative about how end users are educated on phishing. You know, I offered a piece of chocolate to get your password, offer users some chocolate and say, don't give your password away at any cost. This is the impact it has on the business. I'll give you a piece of chocolate every single month if you promise not to do that. And I've seen customers do that, and it has been successful to some extent. But it's not the full answer, obviously. Mike.
Thanks, Derek. Yep, and just topping off with the other actions on the IAM solution itself. You know, use an IAM solution that can go out and auto-discover the web apps being used, and use an IAM solution that can go out and forcibly update user passwords, change them to something random, and hide them from the users so the users don't know the passwords. Because if they don't know them, how can they be phished? Okay, so that's oh, sorry.
Just one final thing. I mentioned Matt Wixie. He has a 2-page summary on his slides around things that you can do. It's really interesting and insightful. I'd encourage you to look at that. Black Hat 2018, Matt Wixie, PwC. Okay, shall we open up for questions?
Yep, great. Thanks, Derek.
Thanks.
Okay, I know we've got at least one, so that's good. Gets things started.
You have to put it.
You said that I understood you to be saying that it automatically provides the password into approved or listed applications. If the application is something like Word that wants a password to open a file because it's been password protected, can it actually provide the password in that context?
It can, yeah. My1Login can do that. So we have a desktop client integrator which works with anything that presents itself as an executable on the desktop. So any Windows form window or child window that opens, like the password prompt window on Windows, we can execute the log and essentially authentication into that. So.
Does your product support any other directory servers besides Active Directory?
Yeah, sure. So anything that's LDAP compliant. If you're using Azure Azure Directory, we can integrate with that. It uses the AD Sync service. So yeah, it supports multiple directories. Okay.
I'm quite interested in employees that use their work computer to also do private things.
Sorry,
I take
did
my
you say
laptop
that?
home with me and I use it to access, say, my Yahoo account using my private email address rather than my company email address.
Yep.
What sort of level of coverage does your solution achieve?
It's flexible as to how you configure the policies. So you can either decide to exclude specific domains and applications from being integrated with the system, or you can decide only to include essentially a specific list of known or approved apps, or you can allow the system to go out and give the user the choice as to whether they include it or not. So you've got the flexibility at the point where it's configured. Any more questions? Yep. Can everyone hear the questions as they're being asked, by the way? Yeah? Okay.
How might this work on applications where you would have multiple credentials?
It's a great question. So when you launch the application that has multiple credentials, instead of authenticating the user straight away, it will come up with a nice little drop-down list embedded in the user name field of the app, the web app they're trying to access. So it's very intuitive. It's all on page, and it will come up with a little drop-down list. And even if let's say you have 100 credentials, if it's an admin that's got maybe 100 sets of credentials for a specific IT application, it will shortlist about 5 of them, but enable an on-page search box so they can quickly search through, find the one they want, and authenticate.
And would that only be with web apps? You wouldn't get that sort of support?
No, you get that. You get that with the executables as well. So when you launch a desktop executable, if you have more than one identity for it, it will pause. It will not execute a login. It will pause, shortlist the ones that are available for that user and for that application, and the user can select which one they log into. So it works with everything from, sort of some of the more edge cases like SAP and Oracle authentication, where they have apps that have their own launchers essentially, and it works with all of that. So. Anyone else? No. I've either sent you to sleep or you're shocked and stunned. I'm not sure which it is, but. Anyone? No? Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, and I hope you have a great rest of the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.